It is truly an honor to be with you all this morning, or this afternoon. I feel so blessed to be here today with my girls. My mom was supposed to be here, my sister, my extended family, and all of you. On this spectacular spring day, which Sharon also obviously arranged, it is the perfect opportunity to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for your tremendous support and friendship. Thank you to the dozens and dozens of women who worked hand in hand with Sharon to make this event such a success. Thank you to our Women's Division Board for their loyalty and leadership during these challenging times. And above all, thank you to Shaare Zedek for the heroic role it has played throughout the last 2 years and throughout its storied 120-year history. I know I quote this statistic all the time, but once again, the hospital brought more than 24,000 babies into the world, more than any other hospital in the Western world. If ever there was a statistic to be proud of, this surely is it. Today, as many have mentioned, we are raising funds for our Helmsley Cancer Center, a place that will undoubtedly become a world leader in innovative, compassionate cancer care. You know we speak about Shaare Zedek as the hospital with a heart, and as many of you who have had a personal experience there can attest, it isn't just a nice PR gimmick. Compassionate care is deeply embedded in the soul of this hospital, as you will soon hear. Today we have the privilege of hearing from a patient who has a very special story to tell. This amazing patient is also a woman I am so proud to call my mechut. She is an incredible woman who gifted us with a superb son-in-law. Joyce Tradburks is a tremendous Ba'alat Chesed and asked if she could share with us just how much Shaare Zedek means to her. Joyce, please join us to share your story.
Thank you, Debbie. So I'm here to share my story, which, as you soon will quickly discover, is an amazing medical story. And I'm here to tell you that there were a few experts in the Department of Neurology at Shaare Zedek that saved my life. One Shabbat morning, early in October, I suddenly had a terrible headache. It went from a 1 to a 10 in about between 30 seconds to a minute. And I immediately said to myself, this must be an aneurysm. Of course, I knew nothing about aneurysms other than that they're horrible headaches, people collapse and die. But so far I wasn't dead. I was crying. And my husband soon came home from shul right after me, and by then I was in my pajamas, and I told him, I have this horrible headache, we have to go to the emergency room. Suffice it to say, we got to Shaare Zedek emergency, and by the time that I was in triage, I was feeling better. But they did the full workup, including a CAT scan, and the results of the scan showed, well, there was a little something that we would call a not recent event in my brain. All the other results were fine, nothing urgent. Well, while we were waiting for all the various tests, I picked up a relevant pamphlet called The Headache Clinic at Shaare Zedek. Also, I have to share with you that while we were sitting around in the lobby waiting, the bottom lobby area, we saw a very interesting side of Shaare Zedek. There were so many types of patients that Shaare Zedek serves. The entire gamut of the Israeli population, including a man in shackles and his police escorts. And I realized, whoa, Shaare Zedek is really a lively place. I was discharged because, as I said, it wasn't urgent. They didn't find anything indicating anything special, and actually I felt fine. However, we decided to stay until Shabbat was over, and so we saw and observed another aspect of Shaare Zedek. I knew about this, but this time we were the recipients. Shaare Zedek very graciously takes care of people who are stuck there on Shabbat. It was a beautiful experience. and I'll never forget that day. Well, my discharge instructions said I have to immediately see my family doctor. My family doctor told me I needed to get to a neurologist and a cardiologist as soon as possible. But that became my challenge, getting an appointment with somebody at that Shaarey Tzedek headache clinic. And, well, of course, I immediately had told our kids about our Shaarey Tzedek emergency room Shabbat adventure. And of course, my daughter-in-law, Ariel Kessenbaum, immediately said, well, you gotta call my mom. She'll take care of you. I don't know why, but I felt I should be able to get this appointment myself. And I was able to get an appointment with Dr. Avraham Ashkenazi, the head of the headache clinic, at the beginning of March. But remember, this is October. And I knew that was like too long to wait. So then I said, well, what about if I use Sharab, where a patient privately pays? It's really not such a great amount, huge amount, for an appointment. And then they said, okay, you could get that appointment at the end of January. But we were still at the beginning of October. And I knew that was not good. Now, of course, you know Debbie Kestenbaum, and she was not really going to be waiting for me to call her. She was in touch with me as soon as she found out of my situation, and she was insistent. Let me help you, Joyce. But I was still in the mindset, no, I'll work with the system, and I'll get my appointment. Well, I was completely wrong. Now, I couldn't really resist Debbie's offer for very long, because 3 days later, in the middle of the night, I got another one of those whopper headaches. I call it my knock on the head. Now, I obviously called Debbie and asked for her help. She told me right up my situation, and she made the call. And she sent in my summary. I had an appointment with Dr. Avraham Ashkenazi within a week. Dr. Ashkenazi reviewed my emergency room records. He asked me a few questions, and he was tenacious. He was very deep in thought during my interview. I was expecting him to identify the kind of headache, describe a treatment plan. Well, he did identify the type of headache. He said, this is called a thunderclap headache. And then he said, now you need to go to the emergency room. You need to get yourself admitted to the hospital, and you should not go home. We're going to do some tests, because you actually have an aneurysm, which I did identify. And maybe that aneurysm has caused those headaches. I'm going to look at all of those test results and evaluate. Well, that was way more than I expected for that appointment. And then within 24 hours, they did a contrast CAT scan, an MRI, an MRA, and for closing up, a spinal tap. That was way, way, way more than I had expected. And by the way, a spinal tap is called a lumbar puncture, if you ever wanted to know. So Dr. Ashkenazi paid me a visit soon after, and he told me actually none of the results of all of those tests indicated that this aneurysm had leaked. But those tests had been done a week after that second headache. So maybe the cause of my headache was from the aneurysm, maybe not. Maybe it's a vessel spasm. And so he gave me some medication, but then he said, but you do have an aneurysm, and it's 4 millimeters. And so it had been undetected for who knows how long of my life, and they needed to correct this. So in my head, I said, that's brain surgery. And he said, well, yes. So that was something, again, I didn't expect. But then there was a bright side to all of this. And his name is Dr. Yaakov Amsalam. He is the head of Shaarey Tzedek's Invasive Neurological Radiology Department. This means that I would have the kind of brain surgery where they don't enter through the skull. Rather, Dr. Yaakov Amsalam would access my brain through the artery, entering through my groin. And I thought to myself, that's going to be uncomfortable. When he told me about all of this, and about Dr. Amsalam, when Dr. Ashkenazi told me about all of this, he smiled. It was that kind of smile where he said, he was really saying, you are in good hands, you are going to be fine. So indeed, all of the various neurologists that visited me during my stay there all had that same kind of reassuring expression. Dr. Amsalam has an amazing technique. You're in good hands. And I soon met Dr. Amsalam, and he confidently explained what he does. He is a very confident surgeon. He's trained in Europe, and he told me this is how I've learned to treat aneurysms. He would go through the artery, and then he inserted some coils into the aneurysm to prevent any further leakage. And I learned at the time that some aneurysms have a neck, and some aneurysms don't have a neck. Mine did not have a neck, so they needed to also insert a stent. Now at this point, I recognized I was so unbelievably fortunate. Basically, this is what we call a NACE. It was my personal medical miracle. Here, I get 2 knocks on my head. Soon I get an appointment with a very tenacious neurologist, and using state-of-the-art medical technology, they discover and identify a hidden aneurysm, and it hadn't burst. And then this brilliant brain surgeon does surgery and doesn't give me a Lochencup. That's a hole in the head. So instead, he clogged up that aneurysm and left me with really minimal pain. But you should know that it did take a number of months to regain my strength. So it really was brain surgery. And then as I was recovering, I did a lot of thinking, and I thought to myself, what do I do with all of this? I was so fortunate. And I truly believed that all of it was a miracle. So I decided, our world is really messed up these days. And I kind of would like to inform others that miracles do happen. I wanted others to feel reassured that there still are a few good things that happen in this world. Now, I hadn't really told all of that to Debbie or really to my family, but when Debbie called me and said would I share my experience with all of you, I immediately said yes, because I want to say thank you. And so I get to say thank you to all the supporters of Shari Tzedek, and that feels really good to me. And I hope you'll share my personal miracle with others, because there's still miracles in the world. So I just want to say thank you.